Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Paper Rose Studio's Vintage Rose Collection. I'll be using a mix of 6x6 and 12x12 paper. The 6x6 I have the original Vintage Rose, and the 12x12 collection I have the Vintage Rose Basics. And if you want a closer look at this collection, I did share an unboxing video earlier this year. And I'll link that video at the end of this video if you want to check it out. One thing I love about Paper Rose's 12x12 collections, on the back of the cover sheet, there are lots of sentiments, all in colors that coordinate with the collection. And it's a great variety of sentiments that you can use throughout the year. I'll also be using some of the coordinating embossed die cut packs. I have Vintage Rose and Vintage Rose tags and tickets. And the 12x12 collection also includes lots of great cut aparts. If you are interested in any of the products I use in this video, I do have links in the description box below. I'll be sharing 8 different card designs, so hopefully you'll get some inspiration on how to use this collection. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. For the background of my card, I'm using the 12x12 gingham pattern paper. I'll be adding one of the large tag cut aparts. These are about 3 inches by 4 inches. Across the card, I'm adding this light pink and white polka dot paper, and this piece is 2 inches by 4 inches. The background gingham paper is 4 inches by 5¼ inches. I layered the pink and white polka dot paper on some cranberry colored cardstock. I'll adhere it toward the bottom of the card, about 1 inch up. Then I'll layer the background on the same cranberry cardstock. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. Before adhering the tag cut apart, I'm putting a scrap piece of cardstock on the back side, just at the top where it goes over the pink and white polka dot paper. I will cut the 2 sides so it's not peeking out from behind the tag, and you can use any cardstock color since it won't be visible. Now I'll put ATG tape on the back and add the tag in the center of the card. The colors in this collection are just gorgeous. Reminds me of late summer, early autumn colors. If you love florals and vintage looks, this is the perfect collection. For a sentiment, I'm adding one of the embossed die cuts. It has the sentiment, "Where flowers bloom, so does love." And I did pop it up using some foam dimension from scrapbook.com. At the top of the tag, I'm adding a small die cut bow using the same cranberry cardstock. And this die is from Paper Rose's Tiny Bows die sets. It's one of my favorites, includes several varieties of different bows. I put barely art glue on the back and I'll adhere it at the top of the tag. Very simple card design, and I did end up making 3 cards. I used different tags and sentiments for each of the cards, and for 2 of them I added a light orange bow instead of the cranberry color. For card design number 2, I'm using a card sketch for inspiration. This is from Freshly Made Sketches. It's number 668. And if you are interested in any of the sketches I use in this video, I share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. The link is in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. For the background of my card, using some of the gingham paper, for the 2 strips on the left side, one features telephones, cameras, a stack of books surrounded by beautiful flowers. That's the wider strip, and the narrow strip next to it, I'm using some of the wood grain pattern paper. I'll layer both of those on some cardstock, and the narrow strip that goes behind them on the right side, this is from the 12x12 collection. It's at the very bottom where the label is. On the back side, there's a stripe design. That way there's 0 waste using their 12x12 collections. The gingham paper is 4 inches by 5¼ inches, and my cardstock layer is an additional 1/8 of an inch. So 4 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8 of an inch. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. And the cardstock I'm using in this video is from my stash. I've probably had it several years and there isn't a label, so I can't tell you the brand or the actual color name. I'll be adding a stitch circle die cut, and I did use some white shimmer cardstock for the circle. Before adhering it down, I'm adding a scrap piece on the right side of the circle, and I did cut out 2 pieces of cardstock, glued them together. Now I'll adhere them on the back side of the circle. And I want it just in the area that goes off of all those other layers of pattern paper and cardstock. I'm adding one of the embossed die cuts. And if you haven't used Paper Rose's embossed die cuts before, I highly recommend them. They have this gorgeous glossy detail on them. I did pop it up using foam dimension from scrapbook.com. And I'll add one of the sentiment cut-aparts, Hello You. Put double-sided adhesive tape on the back side, and I'll adhere it in the lower right-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The second card features the telephone surrounded by beautiful flowers. For card design number 3, the card sketch is from Sketch Saturday. This is number 694. This is one of my favorite card sketches, perfect for featuring 2 different pattern papers. I'm putting the tone-on-tone polka dot paper at the bottom and this gorgeous floral paper at the top. For a little bit of separation, I'll add a strip of the green stripe pattern paper. Then I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I can see part of the label of the cardstock, but I still can't read the brand. I know I've had this for years and years, and I used up my very last piece. It was unique cardstock since it had a different shade of the color on each side. For the 2 banners on the right side, for the larger one, I'm using the gingham pattern paper, and for the narrow strip, I'm using some of the cranberry cardstock. Before adhering the larger banner, I'll put some scrap pattern paper pieces on the back side. Just need a small narrow piece at the very bottom and a larger piece at the top. That way the banner doesn't have that noticeable bump with the green stripe paper going right behind it. I'll put ATG tape on the back and adhere the larger gingham banner down first. For the smaller cardstock banner, I'll put Barely Art glue on the back and adhere it on the right side. But first I need to cut the small fishtail at the bottom. And I'm using scrapbook.com's titanium scissors. They're very strong, perfect for cutting ribbon, twine, paper, and you can even use them to cut sticky things like foam dimension. Next I'll add a stitch circle die cut, and I did use white shimmer cardstock for the circle. I'm not adding those cardstock layers behind it since I will be adding a large floral die cut piece on top. And since it's always nice to have a few flat cards on hand, I'm not popping up the floral image with foam dimension. I'll put Barely Art glue on the back and adhere it in place. And for this set of cards, I'm not adding a sentiment. It's also nice to have some blank cards on hand that you could use for any occasion. For card design number 4, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 34. For the background of my card, I'm using the cranberry and off-white striped paper. For the small rectangle, featuring this gorgeous wildflower design. This is one of my favorite patterns in the whole collection. Across the background of the card, adding a narrow strip of the polka dot paper. I layered that on some of the cranberry burgundy colored cardstock. Now I'll layer the background stripe paper on the same cardstock. Then I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Now I'll add the floral panel in the center of the card. This is a fun sketch for featuring 2 different pattern papers. I have 3 with that stripe in the background, but you could also just use cardstock for it. Next, I'll add a stitch circle die cut, adhere it on the left side, and I did cut this circle a little bit larger than what's indicated on the card sketch. I wanted it large enough to fit this beautiful embossed camera die cut piece. I will admit I was ready to hoard the 2 embossed camera die cut pieces since I love cameras, but I know there will be a card recipient out there that will enjoy them just as much, so I did use both of them on this set of cards. I did pop up the camera using foam dimension, and now I'll add one of the sentiment cut-aparts just because. It's almost too long to fit on the card, but I will make it work. I cut the left side so I could tuck it in underneath the camera, and I'll trim the right side, that way it doesn't go off the edge of the card. And before adhering it down, I did put a scrap piece of cardstock on the right side, and I'll add one more scrap piece of cardstock on the very right side where it goes off of the floral paper. That way the end stays nice and level. I'm just using a scrap piece of cardstock that was closest to me. I had a narrow strip and this is the perfect size. Wasn't sure if I needed to add 1 or 2 pieces. Grab a pair of tweezers, put glue on both sides of that tiny cardstock piece and tuck it in underneath. And I tilted the card on the side, checking to see if any of that white cardstock was visible. There was a tiny area, so I tucked it in with the end of my tweezers. For embellishments, I'm adding some gold mini circle peel-offs. These are from Love from Lizzie. I'll put 3 in the upper right-hand corner and 2 in the lower left-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The other camera, I love the image as well. It's a black camera with some beautiful purplish pink flowers. For card design number 5, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 1. This card features paper from the 12 by 12 collection. For the background of my card, selected this lovely tone-on-tone floral design. I'll add some of the polka dot paper on the left side. And for the smaller square piece, this is one of the cut-aparts from the 12 by 12 paper. Features this beautiful floral design in the lower left-hand corner. I was wrong. This cardstock, I do know the name. The brand is Coordinations and the color is burgundy. I think this is the only card I use this cardstock color for. It matches beautifully with that floral and pinkish polka dot paper. Before adhering the floral cut apart down, I did put a scrap piece of cardstock on the very right side, just in the area where it goes off of the pink polka dot pattern paper. Now I'll layer the background on the same burgundy cardstock, put ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For a sentiment, I'm adding one of the cut aparts from the 12 by 12 paper. It's your special day. I put clear double-sided adhesive tape on the back side, and I'll adhere it in the lower right-hand corner. For embellishments, I'm adding more Love from Lizzie peel-offs. This is the mini circle style in rose gold mirror color. It matches beautifully with the pattern paper. Putting 2 of the larger circles in the upper right-hand corner of the cut apart. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The other card features the sentiment Feel Better Soon. Now moving on to card design number 6. In both the 6 by 6 and 12 by 12 papers, there are large designs that fill up most of the sheet. The designs in the 12 by 12 collection are a little too large to use for cards, at least A2 size cards. But in the 6 by 6 size, you are able to cut those down and feature them on your card. So one of the designs has this beautiful stack of books surrounded by flowers. I cut down the paper to 3.5 inches by 4 inches. And I'll layer it on some of the cranberry colored cardstock. For the background of my card, using this tone-on-tone foliage design. And I'm adding 3 of the stripe papers on the background and adhering them diagonally. Right now those strips are a little bit wider than my background panel. After adhering them down, I'll flip over this panel, use a pair of scissors, and trim off the overhang. That way they're flush on the edge of the pattern paper. For a little bit of shine, I'm adding a Love from Lizzie peel off just at the top of the 3 stripes and at the bottom. I'm using Love from Lizzie's clear with gold overlay pinstripe peel offs. Since most of the area will be covered up with the book image, I'm able to use some of the small scrap pieces. I'll wrap the end around the back, layer this piece on the cranberry cardstock, and apparently I didn't cut this correctly, so I will go and trim that off real quick. Now I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next I'll add the beautiful book and floral image. Put that in the center of the card. For a sentiment, I'm using another cut apart, Hello There, and I decided to layer it on the same cranberry cardstock. To help me not lose some of the pieces when I prepped my cards, I have them stored in scrapbook.com's stack and sort trays. This is the smaller size. After layering the sentiment on cardstock, I'll put Barely Art glue on the back and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner of the book and floral panel. For embellishments, I'm using more gold circle peel-offs, this time the smallest size. I'll put 2 underneath the sentiment and 3 in the lower left-hand corner. And I'm trying to get them evenly spaced and in a straight row. The peel-off stickers are great to use as embellishments since they don't add any extra dimension. I donate a lot of my cards, and some of the organizations prefer to have the flat cards so they don't have to pay additional postage. If I have narrow scrap pieces of pattern paper, I like to add them on the inside of the card just for a little extra detail. Now moving on to card design number 7. This is a very simple card design, but it's one of my favorites. I'm using the gorgeous wood grain pattern paper for the background. And for the image panel, I have this grid paper, which was cut out from some of the 12 by 12 paper that had floral designs in the corners. I'll layer it on some brown cardstock. And this is dark brown cardstock from my stash. At the bottom of the card, just for a little extra shine, I'll add more Love from Lizzie peel-offs. This is the clear with gold overlay in pinstripe style. I'm using the widest and medium width. Even though I will be covering up the very center, I'm still adding that strip all the way across the card. I'll add the widest strip down first, then the medium underneath, about 1/8 of an inch lower. Now I'll wrap the ends around the back, put ATG tape on the back, and layer the wood grain pattern paper on the same dark brown cardstock. The wood grain pattern paper is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and the brown cardstock layer is an additional 1/8 of an inch. I noticed one end of the cardstock layer was a little bit longer, so I did use my trimmer to cut that off. Now I'll put more ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I'll be adding the sentiment, It's Your Birthday, and also one of the embossed die cut pieces. This little floral shop with gorgeous pink flowers all around it. I did pop it up using foam dimension. I'll remove the release paper, add the image in the center of the grid panel. I also popped up the sentiment with foam dimension. I'll add that underneath, right on top of those 2 peel-off strips. For embellishments, I'm using the mini circle peel-offs in gold. I'll put 2 of the medium size in the upper left-hand corner. And I'm also using some of the medium hearts in gold. I'll put 2 on the right side of the sentiment and 1 on the left side. So there is my finished card. I love the colors. The pink and browns together. It looks so pretty. Now moving on to my final card design, number 8. I'm using the pink and white polka dot paper for the background. And for a sentiment, this is one of the cut aparts from the 12 by 12 collection. I'll layer it on some of the cranberry cardstock. I'll also be adding one of the narrow striped strips. And on the left side of the card, using some of the leftover pattern paper, I believe this was part of the book with floral paper. This piece is 2 by 3.5 inches. I cut a fishtail on the bottom, and I'll adhere the banner down first. I will be adding the narrow strip of striped paper, but instead of putting that entire piece down, I cut a small piece to adhere on the left and right side of the banner. First, I'll layer the background on some cranberry cardstock, put ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Now I'll add the wider piece of the striped paper on the right side. Then I'll put the narrow piece on the left side. And I'm using the grid of the polka dots to get those 2 pieces at the same position. So it looks like I do have one piece going all the way across the card. Before adhering the sentiment piece, I'll add that leftover scrap piece of pattern paper in the upper right-hand corner. That'll help keep it at the same level. Then I'll put ATG tape on the back and adhere the sentiment on the center of the card. I'll be adding 2 of the floral embossed die cut pieces, and I did pop them up with some foam dimension. I'll remove the release paper, add the larger floral die cut in the upper right-hand corner, and the smaller one in the lower left-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I did go back later and add 1 more foam piece underneath the smaller floral image. I love the beautiful colors in these floral arrangements. Now here's another look at the 17 cards I made using Paper Rose Studios Vintage Rose Collection. This is a gorgeous collection. I love the colors and designs. I use both the 6 by 6 and 12 by 12 paper, along with 2 of the coordinating embossed die cut packs. Vintage Rose and also Vintage Rose tags and tickets. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. Paper Rose is based in Australia, and they do ship their products internationally, but you can also buy them here in the US, and I have links for both locations listed below. I also wanted to mention that Paper Rose is working on getting their products Australian made, which I think is amazing. They're currently at about 80%, and I know they're working on 100%. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.